Well, fireworks, fairs, and dumplings. Chinese New Year is usually full of traditions. Of course, there is one thing in particular many of us look forward to: Hongbao, or traditional Chinese red envelopes with money inside. But this is the one custom that is now entering the digital era. With the advent of the electronic Hongbao, Chinese are scrambling to see who can snag more money through their phone. Online giants Tencent and Alibaba were also competing to see who can make their virtual Hongbao the most popular in this country. But what does this new trend mean for the holiday spirit? Let's take a look.
Money, money, money. It's time to charge your cell phone and fill your online wallet. Hongbao has gone digital and been a huge holiday hit. This Chinese New Year, the race was on to grab digital cash over cell phones.
I got 2 yuan. It's really funny. Just hope I have more chances for these Hongbao.
I didn't get it in time. I used different counts but still didn't make it.
It's easy to get in on the fun. One person puts a digital Hongbao online, then the race is on. If you click fast enough, you'll get a share of the prize. It's quickly becoming huge business for the holiday season. On Chinese New Year's Eve, e-Hongbao on Tencent's social media app WeChat topped 1.1 billion yuan, nearly $200 million US. It was also big business elsewhere, with Tencent's QQ network at 637 million yuan and Alipay clocking up 240 million. For companies, it's seen as a huge opportunity to get new subscribers to their online payment platforms. In 2014, subscribers to mobile payment services in China reached 217 million. That's 39% of mobile phone users, a huge increase from just over 25% the previous year. Transactions on mobile platforms now top 7.7 trillion yuan, 5 times the figure from 1 year ago. Online payment appears to be the wave of the future. But when it comes to Hongbao, it's a new twist on an old custom. But with many attached to the old ways, is the digital age really progress, or is it a challenge to the heartfelt traditions of the holiday season?
And for more on the new phenomenon, the e-Hongbao, we are joined by Professor Tao Ran, who is the director of the China Center for Public Economics and Governance at Renmin University. Meanwhile, in New York, we have Mr. William Hess, who is the head of research at PRC Macro Advisors. Gentlemen, happy Chinese New Year and welcome to our program. First of all, Professor Tao, tell us directly and frankly, how much Hongbao have you received? Did you try to send, receive, and grab some Hongbao, especially e-Hongbao?
Yes, I guess I probably get over 100 this e-Hongbao, and probably I sent about 60 or 80, something I cannot remember.
So there's a balance?
The money is more or
the
less
fiscal
balanced.
balance.
Yes.
But what do you think about this phenomenon? Explain this phenomenon to our audience overseas.
Basically, is you have a WeChat.
Which is a social media app in China.
Yeah, and then you can link that application to your bank account. Then you can draw money out, and then you can send it electronically to anyone who also have a WeChat, which can link to their bank account. So then you can, give gifts in monetary terms.
Right, and of course you have received some. You also give out some. 1 billion, in fact, people were like you on the eve of the Spring Festival in China just last week, giving out and receiving Hongbao. Mr. Hess, I know you've been good friends of the Chinese community, obviously, in New York. I wonder whether you have also got yourself into this fun game of getting and giving out e-Hongbao.
Well, I'm afraid to say that with the time difference here that I was asleep while most of this was going on, so I wasn't able to get any, so my balance was officially 0. So the professor did much better than I did. But I think from watching from here, it's interesting to see how this has been covered in the financial media in the U.S. I think it's a custom that people seem to understand, but there's so many and such rapidly changing applications in China with digital and social media that it's hard to keep up with it, I think, for many people covering it from here.
Well, one of the things I would really want to ask you, Mr. Hess, is that do you think it is a blessing or it is a pity that you were having 12-hour difference and therefore would not be able to get into the game?
Well, I think given that the size of the market, this is certainly going to attract a lot of attention for the next year. So I think that it's such a huge demand and such a huge mobile user population that it'll provide lots of opportunities to come in the coming years.
It is not just the WeChat that we are talking about here. It is also some of the other social media platforms. Professor Tao, as you may know, there's a huge competition among the social apps these days, trying to get more customers onto their platform, giving out and receiving Hongbao. Baidu, of course, is one of them. Sina, also Alibaba as well. But do you think this is going to be a dogfight, the result of which, of giving and receiving Hongbao, would carry out to the rest of the year when it comes to who is going to be the biggest winner of China's e-commerce and of China's e-banking?
Yeah, I think they're very, hard fights here. In particular, actually, there are now only two main competitors, Alibaba and Tencent. I think now this time Tencent apparently leads, and actually they're trying to, get all the customers stick to them, and then use this WeChat to pay for other things. For example, I found that I can use this WeChat to pay my mobile fees. I can also use it to pay my taxi fares, which actually is very convenient.
So what you're saying seems to be suggesting it is all about eyeballs. As long as you attract the attention of the consumers these days, you got the game won. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. Actually, because you use your mobile phone to pay for many things.
Right.
It's very convenient. I think many young people like that.
But
And,
the thing is, whether the result of this dogfight is going to carry out to the rest of the year, when you look at Mr. Hess, the consumers mainly that are on WeChat are individual consumers. While those that have been using Alibaba has been using as a platform, usually there are medium and very small sized enterprises or small private companies using it to sell and buy stuff. What do you think about the customer bases of these two giants? Will the stock fights result carry out to the rest of the world, the year rather?
Yeah, I think it certainly will. And also looking at the structure of the industry, I mean, to generalize, Tencent has a huge user base but is weaker on the payment side. Alibaba has a stronger payment infrastructure but doesn't have the same network of retail users. So that seems to speak to some acquisitions and consolidation as these otherwise giants compete to get into these new business segments. But looking ahead to the rest of the year, I think this kind of mode of marketing or way of interacting with mobile consumers presents a lot of opportunities during the course of the year, whether it's something related to a sales promotion, some new forms of the lottery. There's many applications. I think the question becomes how to prevent this from kind of getting out of control, where the competition ends up perhaps hurting the consumer interest instead of helping them, because there are many ways, as the professor mentioned, where the convenience and the ease of making payments has increased dramatically, and this is good for both sellers and for buyers. So I think this is the competition can be channeled into some very positive outcomes here.
Is it really going to eventually hurt consumers rather than aiding the consumers, Professor?
I actually don't understand why you're saying suggesting it might hurt. I think it helps the consumers because.
Well, Mr. Hess, do you want to reiterate what you just said?
Well, sure. I think any time where there's a promotion, a promise, or some kind of offer of money, that this can be put to many different kinds of uses. If there are obviously some risks of if this continues to develop of different kinds of digital fraud as well. So far it's been a very positive experience, but there are some downside risks.
Right. The downside
Okay.
risks are not being, in a way, publicized a lot during this process. The hype of Hongbao. Professor Tao, you yourself also got into this game, and therefore you
Yeah.
seem to be having some difficulties, even as an economist, understanding what's
Yeah.
going on here.
Yeah.
What about the two sides of it?
Yeah, actually, I didn't. I heard some stories about this, but basically, we're giving and receiving this Hongbao in some groups which everyone more or less know each other. So it's difficult to be.
Really? Well,
to be
everyone
seated.
know one another.
No, at
In a
least-
social chat group, usually probably you know maybe 20% of the people, the other 80 probably
okay.
is not necessarily so.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah.
think there's a security issue really hanging out there? Are consumers ready for that? Are they being prepared for it?
Probably not, but most people, players, are relatively young. I think they have more trust in this kind of, mobile payments stuff. So far, I found, me and my friends there, they don't feel threatened.
Okay, very
Yeah.
interesting. Until something happens.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
I
that's
wonder
nice.
whether that is the psychology that we are embracing these days in the internet age. And Mr. Hess, very briefly.
Yeah, I think if you look at the explosion of digital commerce, that in essence what this allows people to do is everything people have ever done to each other, they can do it a lot faster. So that's both good and bad. So I think as this grows, as people look at the size of the market and the potential to reach consumers, that it's something where companies are going to have to work hard, I think, to maintain the consumer confidence in the platforms and products they're offering.
Right.
And that's something that can be put to good use.
On the other hand, Mr. Hess, what does this mean for traditional banking? Because obviously this online banking has become such an interesting thing with this e-Hongbao.
Right. You mentioned in your lead-in segment about travel, and certainly outbound travel and external payments is certainly another bigger part of the prize for Alipay and for the other aspiring companies. It's an area that's dominated now by just a couple of monopolies, and so that's an area where the technology is expanding and becoming less expensive, so that the opportunity to provide services for payment settlement both inside and outside China is growing rapidly. So that's an area where more competition might be needed. So the bigger prize is certainly not just about banking, but about clearing payments and providing online payment platforms and linking that to expanding networks of vendors.
Will this mean the beginning of the winning of the games for the internet companies when it comes to internet banking?
Actually, I think internet banking is something that China perhaps needs more. We have a relatively less competitive traditional banking system. So, basically, which cannot reach actually to everyone. But with internet banking, you can actually reach many people that traditionally had no access to the banking, to bank borrowing, for example.
But we know there's a huge competition between the e-banking and also the traditional banking run by usually some of the biggest banks in this country.
Yeah.
What do you think about this phenomenon vis-a-vis what's going on, the competition between them?
Actually, if you look at what's happened, many traditional banks are trying to kill the internet banking because they began to think this is a big threat to them, which I think is a bad thing. We need more competition. For example, with internet banking, you can have.
And therefore, my question is more specific. What does this e-Hongbao mean? Is this going to be just a very small episode of a whole story? Or this is going to be the beginning of a very brand new story in which the traditional banking has to be really careful these days because the internet companies are really pushing into the market.
Yes, they are. We began to give licenses to some internet banking, which will, lend money to people that, they think who can pay, but with traditional banking, they just cannot borrow. So basically, you can reach more people. I think the traditional banking are facing harder competition.
All right. One is the dogfight among the internet or the social media platforms. The other is what about traditional versus the internet banking? Mr. Hess.
Well, it's interesting to see how these industries, even though they're very new, they're all already tending towards consolidation. So these are the kinds of services that that get better and better the more you link them up. So if you think about being able to send money back and forth with your friends via WeChat, or add to that a payment system, add to that, say, an app for a taxi, very quickly you can put most of your life and most of the flows of transactions that you make into one app or one device, one platform. So I think that there's a lot of consolidation to take place, and I think, as the professor mentioned, that competition is certainly something that needs to be maintained here, because the real benefits, this is an area where benefits accrue directly to consumers in terms of convenience and security. So that's an area that this is going to evolve as quickly as it's developed this past year. So who knows if in 2 or 3 years, if e-Hongbao will be quite as popular. There'll always be something new. So I think there's an opportunity to allow new firms to innovate and to enter this space.
Right.
And ultimately, this is good for the economy.
Who knows? That's an interesting question. Also, it can be done with the exclamation mark as well. But I want to say Happy New Year to the two of you once again. Probably you should check your social media now. Maybe more new Hongbao are coming into it. But thank you so much, gentlemen, for being with us. Thank you. Have fun.